Hey all, it's your girl Fee, bringing you authentic conversation to feed your soul and make you whole. Welcome to a little of this and a little of that. So what is this all about? It's about real talk, real stories, and real growth. It creates an open space for honest conversations. Wherever you're tuning in from, thank you.
You know, knowing what I know right now, which is still so little, and seeing the little that I've been able to do myself, and it's so tiring. It's so tiring. And I mean, that's after you've already dug up the big stone, make it softer, pour water on it, and it's more manageable. And it feels so tiring. And as that young boy is like, why do you just send an email? You wish you could just send an email and it's fixed. And it's so tiring, but yet there was something, as you said, your grandparents raised you with that sense of community. You were raised to say, I am good enough and I am capable and I'm a part of the solution. Do you think we still have that in the younger generation now to push forward for these change?
Well, I think we have that in the younger generation now. You see them everywhere
I
and you
know.
see them strutting.
That's
But they have no, in a number of instances, there is no sense of the root of where all of this. I mean, there were lots of young people who walk around thinking that Toronto was always, Canada was always like this, that Black people was
I know.
always
I
like this.
know.
And oftentimes when I have an opportunity, I talk about the fact it was not always so. You know, some people had to have their head busted, some people were arrested, some people were pushed, some people were insulted. I remember one meeting when I went to the CBC with 4 or 5 others, and we were saying, look, let's have a face on there. Let's get somebody, at least one person reading the news, or one person, or when you bring in a commentator on certain issues, you have white people coming and commenting about Africa and whatever, and you have Africans who are here. And I remember the executive at the time asking for the roller deck, bring the roller deck, and he brought the roller deck on the table and he pushed it towards us, and he said, "Find me the names of people in here, because this is where we go to. If there's a war somewhere, there's a conflict somewhere, we go to this book to find someone, to this roller deck to find someone who would comment." And of course, we went through and there were none of our faces. And so it was push, 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 push. And so when I look now and I see just about every one of the stations have, Black young people working there, and I see the progress we've made. And last year, I was just blew my mind when I was at the Association of Black law students,
Okay.
and I saw the umpteen Black students. When I saw that there was a medical doctors group, when I see teachers group, and there are
Yes.
all
Yes.
kinds
Yes. Yes.
of young people who are in there getting into the profession, making their way, bright and smart and brilliant. And I'm happy about that, really, really happy about that. But I just need them to understand the root. As someone said to me the other day, it was as though you guys had gone ahead and had cleaned the field,
Yeah.
had made the path,
Yeah.
had cleaned it up, and now we can walk
Play
in.
and enjoy
But we
and
need to understand,
and
we need to
appreciate.
appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, I was in a discussion lately where the issue was about seniors
Mm-hmm.
and elders. They were talking about the fact that seniors in Caribbean culture
Mm-hmm.
and also in Canadian Caribbean culture,
Mm-hmm.
once you turn 65 and you're old, and so you kind of put to the side, and you're not seen as being an essential, and seen, and elders on the other hand, in some communities where they revere the elders,
Yes.
indigenous communities,
Yes.
some of the
Yes.
Asian communities,
Yes.
they see the elder as someone who
Yes.
is wise,
Yes.
who's gone through, who have
Yes.
experience to share,
Yes.
who have so much nurturing and
Yes.
experience to pass on.
Yes.
And so I think we have to work with our young people to get them to the stage where they can see older people as coming with experience, that you should not be joining an organization. I had someone call me the other day and was raising funds for this organization, asked me to make a donation. And I kept asking about, what the organization, and had no idea what year the organization started, what work they have been
Wow.
doing so far. So before we dive into things, we need to ask some questions. We need to know what took place before we were here. Just as you would ask a question about in a workplace, you would want to know what is the company,
That's
how
right.
long the
That's
company
right.
has
That's
been,
right.
that you'd
That's
want to
right.
know that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think we need to know that about our organization, our
Mm-hmm,
churches,
mm-hmm,
our pastors,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, those in the community who
Mm-hmm.
provide leadership.
Yes.
We should know a bit more than just, that's the way it has been.
And I think so there's so much in what you just said. And one of the biggest thing for me, and maybe it's because I was raised by my grandparents, there's such a need for me to talk to elders and the seniors. There's such a need. I would go to the nursing home up here, and there's a lady from Barbados, and I realized that she didn't have much family, and I'll go visit. And as I go there, I don't know, maybe they sense to me that sense as well that I'm a person with a senior, and we will talk, and they want to talk with you. And what I keep saying is that why are our seniors just feel like they're locked away in a parking lot? When I was running for mayor, one of the things that I've been wanting to see is how can we connect the elders here with more schools, even if they can be on a Zoom to talk into schools. Some people don't have grandparents. How can we get them even have more nursing home, even conjoined to daycare, where seniors can go and be around kids and pass on the wisdom? We don't have that. So as I said, we come in and we take everything for granted. And we don't remember that someone's shoulder was crushed and back walked on to make this possible for us. For me to even walk into Canada when you're doing all that advocacy, I'm just starting high school in Jamaica. So to come here and have, it might not be still not a level playing field, but my goodness, from where it
It
came from,
was, yes.
from to now, it is a level playing field for me to can even get up and embrace certain freedom to say, hey, because of this, Dr. Augustine and the team and everybody she worked with and the hard work to make Black history possible in Canada. Hey, Aurora, what you mean we've never celebrated?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So this is why conversation like this with you is so important, because we need to know how. Nothing just happened. And there's a sense of celebration and appreciation that need to be constant. And there was this movie that just came out, the 8th Battalion, or the number 8
Yes,
Battalion.
yeah, yeah.
And I was so moved when I saw that one of the ladies who were the women who were part of that were being honored get to see it before she passed, and she passed after the movie. It's so important to constantly honor and recognize, because it should empower us more how we can move forward, because we're appreciating what they have done. We're kind of taking on the baton, for lack of a better word, to doing better.
Well, this is when I talk about passing the baton. And passing the baton is, going from me to you to someone younger. And we talk a lot about intergenerational opportunities. And there are opportunities for young people, and there is just so much for them to learn. I use the analogy all the time of the Sankofa bird. And the Sankofa is a bird with a very mythological bird
Okay.
with a very long neck, which every so often it goes back there, stays for a
Mm.
while, ruminating on what it's seeing back there,
Mm-hmm.
ruminating on the past, brings the neck to the forward, to the fore, looks at where we are in the present, learning from the past, looking into the present, and formulating where it's going to go next.
Wow. I need to go investigate that bird.
And the Sankofa bird, which is, as I say, a mythological
Yes,
bird,
yes.
that was chosen by the city of Toronto to name Dundas Square.
Mm.
And so it was kind of looking back,
Yes.
gaining the knowledge in the present, and looking to the
Forward.
future. And the newspapers and those who really didn't like the concept was saying, why are you bringing a bird, an African bird, into city of Toronto, blah blah blah, a lot of stuff, not realizing that it's mythology.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's a way of kind of for us to visualize the past,
Yes.
the present,
In the
the
future.
future. But we can't go to the future
Without
until we ruminate in the present and until
looking at
we
the
know the
past.
past.
A lot of people don't want to know the past. I don't know why we're so afraid of it. The other day I was talking to a counselor, and because we're saying to them now that, hey, you said these are the things that you said. We know the truth already. We know the truth that we can't have equity without real, authentic, putting our money where our mouth is to make the work happen. We have to do some of the work. We can't just check box with a DEI and said, stop, do this. And we have to work with the community and see
Yes, yes,
action.
yes.
And one of the person says, oh, we're doing enough. And I thought, it was hard for me, and I don't think I intend for it to come out this way. I'm like, and you, the white lady on the other side, looking at me, tell me we're doing it enough. When we have our neighbor's house still being thrown on that person, the young Asian boy was just beaten down and called all kind of slur. You get what I'm saying? When we see jobs are not being available and employment is not, how do you sit here and tell me it's enough? And so it gets me back to the question that I could ask you is, when I meet a lot of clients and they're older in my salon, they would say, oh, at this age, I don't care. I just say what I have to say. They can speak up. They're like, when you get older like
Yeah,
me, you
because
speak
there are
up.
no consequences at
Right?
the time. What can you do to me?
So how soon should someone try to start finding their voice and speaking up?
Well, I think it starts very early, finding your voice. Starts with young children are very much in sync with their voice.
Yes.
They ask you the kind of question that sometimes is embarrassing.
Yes.
They ask you the kind of question that as parents sometimes you want to put your hand over their mouth, but they come right out with it. What we have to teach them and what they have to learn is how you ask those questions with the sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
of the one who is hearing you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can say something and demolish somebody
Yes.
completely, and therefore you take them out of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you can, in some way, have the conversation move that you're learning, they're
Yes.
learning.
Yes. Powerful.
So, and this is where it has to move. And when we do all the DEI, I did something the other day for the municipality of York region,
Mm-hmm.
and my topic was, "Are we there yet?"
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not there yet. So we have to keep on the conversation. We're not there yet. We're heading towards diversity and inclusion and equity and all of those things. We're not there yet. We're on the road too.
Yeah.
And so we have to continue the conversation. We have to continue. And we can't look to the South because in the South, they're trying to to roll back so many of the gains
Yes.
that were made. And you have individuals who pride themselves on saying, look how I can stop Walmart from this, or I can stop Deere Company from, from hiring, blah, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. And
Yes.
so we have to watch that we don't have that, those elements
Yes.
come into Canada, because we're still working at
Getting there.
getting there. We're still working at inclusiveness. We're still working at recognition of our diversity. We're
Mhm.
still working at that sense of belonging that each and every one of us must have.
It's I don't know, I could sit and listen to this forever, Dr. Augustine, because when I was in Jamaica, we didn't need to hear this. And now that I'm thinking about it, even in the Caribbean country, we should be celebrating Black History Month. It might be celebrated differently, but even in those countries, we need to start celebrating Black History Month, because I know we come here and we see so much, it's so different and we have to work so hard. But I love this conversation because we never have to have them with my grandparents. Like,
Well, the thing is that if we were to move the conversations further and further, the conversation has to go all the way back to slavery and the residue of slavery and colonialism and the residue of colonialism. Like our grandparents grew up in colonial settings. They grew up with the residue of slavery. They grew up with, you can't do this and you can't do that because you're Black. You can't be promoted here. You can't be the head of this company. And it was all, again, the residue from that. And so they also, the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is very active now in talking
yes,
about reparation
yes, yes.
and looking at data, looking at those old estates,
Mm-hmm,
and looking at who owned what and who made decisions around
mm-hmm,
what.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So there is that activity there. It wasn't there when I was
mm-hmm,
growing
mm-hmm,
up.
mm-hmm.
I learned more about Europe and
Yeah,
the kings and queens and the
yeah,
wars and the
yeah,
whatnot that took place in Europe. I learned more of European geography and history than I did about
yeah,
Caribbean
yeah,
geography. But
yeah,
this has turned around.
yes.
And so it's kind of like a work in progress. Things are happening, things are moving along,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to make sure that we don't get pushed back.
Yeah, we see it gets stagnant, and people start getting uncomfortable and want to not, and I said to one lady the other day, the goal of the maybe even those in leadership sometimes are to frustrate us to quit. If they can frustrate you to give up of pushing if they don't want the change. And that brought me to this question that I was writing down last night. People people love you and they adore you, and and they see you as sweet, and amazing. The moment they don't know that you have a voice and that you have an opinion and you will speak up. The moment you start speaking up, so for yourself, the moment you start speaking up, um, somebody's going to say, no, she's full of herself, she's different, she's changed, and you might find that you might lose some of those who you probably think have been friend. Have you experienced that in the journey of advocacy?
Well, in the journey of advocacy, I've always had to leave people behind,
Mm,
right? And people whose values are not the same as
yes,
yours, people who are just on the side, um, lukewarm in terms of
yes.
whatever, people who are not there when you want them to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of leave them along and move with
Move on.
people. There was something I used it the other day. I was reading this book called White Women.
Mm-hmm.
It's two women who have been having conversations across the country, across the
Mm-hmm.
US, where they'll pull 10 people in, 10 white women in. So it's a black woman and then an Asian woman, and they'll bring in 10 people for
Mm-hmm.
serious conversation. And those women who agreed to come knew that the conversation was going to be serious about
Mm-hmm.
race, about whatnot. So it's kind of interesting reading. But one of the things that I picked up from there was what one of the women who was
Mm-hmm.
organizer said. She said, I don't want allies. Allies stand on the side and say, yes, I believe, go for it.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's a good thing. She says, what I want are accomplices. I
Mm.
want people who help me drive the getaway car.
Mm. That's another way to look at it. That's a complete different way to look at it.
Because, and then, I kind of use it in the sense sometimes of when we look at people in power positions who say yes, they are allies, who say yes, go do the DEI,
Yes,
and yet won't give you the money in the
I
budget to do
know,
it.
I know.
Go do the DEI and
Yes,
would come and stay for 5 minutes and
yes,
then
and
they
then
leave,
leave.
right?
Mm.
So you can't call them allies,
No, you're right.
right?
And it's funny, as you said that as we wrap up, I remember this movie, it's Hidden Figures.
Yes, I
And
am. Yeah.
I took a clip from that video and I posted and I said, this is the kind of allyship I need. The one who will take the hammer and knock down the barriers with us. That like the physical.
That's right. And that's what she was saying, the accomplice. The
Oh
accomplice.
my goodness, I love that.
What you need is an
The
accomplice, someone who
accomplice.
would help you drive the
Yes,
getaway car.
yeah. So you're part of it. You're not just
You're not
there, the
just on the
cheerleader.
side. Yeah,
Yeah, you are a
yes,
part of it.
yes, yeah. And we
Um,
see a lot of that in talking about DEI and management and managers and people who are in whatever. They say, oh yes, I mean they believe in that. They give you the time, they give you the whatever,
yeah.
but they don't give you the budget. They
No.
don't give you the, or they come for
Yeah.
5 minutes of the talk
Say hi,
and
bye.
then they're gone.
I I love that you said that because guys, as we wrap up, we're just talking about finding your voice, speaking up, and this is important because advocacy can be very lonely. And you have to check your motive because without authentic motive, you get burnt out and give up in a second because this is a longevity thing. It's not a
Well,
sprint.
the thing about finding your voice and the thing about speaking up is that you have to be known to be someone who would speak up.
Yeah.
And I was always known to be
Yeah.
someone who would speak up.
Yes. You know, growing up, and that was so funny because I was wondering, I used to think something was wrong with me because every company I go and everywhere I go, I end up leading something, creating something. And then you start to thinking, why can't I just go somewhere, just be quiet and stay in this side? Was at Scotiabank head office in Toronto before you come. I'm the ambassador, and I'm thinking because it's so natural for me
Yes, yes.
to bring up an issue, whether it's to bring cohesion, especially cohesion. I love seeing people working together. I love seeing change. Relationship is so important. I love seeing people can deal with confrontation healthy and know it's not a big deal. So you're right, it's not just something you just pop up and do. It's really have to
Yes,
be in
and
you.
also people, you have to be authentic, not just on certain occasions and
Yes,
not on certain
yes.
occasions,
It's
because
consistency.
that I call that hypocrisy more
Yeah,
than anything
yeah,
else. That
yeah,
at one point in time you're warm, 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 and another time
yeah,
you're cold,
yeah,
cold,
yeah,
cold,
yeah.
and so it's everyone recognizing that there is something
Consistency.
in you
Yeah,
and that you
consistently.
can help to solve, or you can help to whatever. And I see myself, and I know a lot of people are praying. People in our community, a lot of people just they pray and pray and pray. Well, I don't
Some
pray and pray
action.
and
We
pray.
need action and
I
prayer.
I have one prayer,
Yeah,
and that is, "Thy will be done.
yeah, yeah.
Thy will be
Yeah,
done."
use me, Lord.
I'm your servant.
That's right.
You want something? Thy
Yes.
will be done.
Yes.
I will,
Simple.
And I learned that way back when, that it's a life of service, it's a life of giving, not just for today, but for every day. You're the same way every day, that people know they can come to you, that people know you can assist, that people know that you could be, that you would get involved, that people know that you would be with them as an accomplice and speak up. And it's not just when you're with certain people, and when you're with certain people you behave in a certain way. I think true authenticity is being yourself at all times, regardless of the situation.
No, I can't agree with you anymore, and I think that's a great reminder to close with. But even though you've given us so much already, I'm going to ask you to give at least 2 or 3 points, 2 or 3 quick points that no matter what age you are, you can start there. You can start there too, because sometimes a person might not. Well, this is another thing I learned. You don't have to be the speaker or the person that speaks, but you have ideas and you can bring it to somebody else who you see is moving in the direction that you're passionate about. So what are 2 or 3 ideas or tips that we can leave that anybody can start with to just show up with their authentic self, their authentic voice, and be, whether it's a genuine accomplice, that's my new word now, not an ally anymore, accomplice, we're going to do it together, or just showing up for a cause.
Well, I think you have to start with the self. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you believe in. You have to know what you will tolerate. You need to know where you stand on whatever the issue. So it can't be kind of, I don't know, and da
Yeah.
da 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 da. You have to first of all know where you
You
stand,
stand.
and then you stand firm in your affirm in that position. The second thing I think is important is one must be able to take risks,
It's a big
right?
one.
And that's an important
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
because oftentimes, if this is where I stand, this is what I believe. When you express that, it's like a risk you're taking.
That's right.
That there were people would be on both sides of
That's
whatever.
right.
And how do you stand firm in your belief, and at the same time are able to work with both sides to have them understand where you are? And that's the risk-taking part, because you lose some people or you get into contentious
That's right.
situation. And the third is always remember that you are part of community,
Yeah.
that you can't do anything alone.
Yeah.
You're part of community. So there are 2 words I'm using now all the time: partnership and collaboration.
Yeah. So, Dr. Augustine, I love the 3 points that you gave. And I will share the story based on the point that you make about taking risk. There was a story about the 3 frogs. They were in the the pit and need to get to the top. And everybody was saying it's not possible, you can't do it. And all the 3 frogs were, keep jumping and trying to get out. The first one gave up, dropped dead. That was it. They keep saying yes to all the other 2. Why don't you just give up like the first one? You're not going to make it. It's not going to happen. And then the second one rolled over and died again, didn't make it to the top. They said to the third one who was keep trying, why you bother? Just roll over like the other 2 and die. You're not going to make it. And he finally jumped until he got to the top. And then they said, how did you do it? What happened? How did you, make it? Why did you not roll over like the others? And they discovered that the frog was deaf. And like that, we have to be that in reality. We have to give a deaf ears to the naysayers. It's not possible. You can't make the change. It will never happen. It's always going to be the same. Why you? You have to believe that what you're doing and advocating for matter, and that there's value in the things that you believe in and share. So I just want you to sit and think about that. Be like that frog. You just have to be deaf to a lot of things that you will be hearing. Dr. Augustine, we don't get this all the time. This is a once, I would call it in a lifetime opportunity to can sit with you and talk about this so naturally. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I am filled. I am filled, and I'm just so encouraged because I love this. I don't have grandparents; they died already, and that's where I used to get my wisdom. But thank you, Dr. Augustine. Thank you for showing up always showing up authentically and so full with wisdom and things that we can take to empower ourselves and to build community, because that's what it's really about, build community. So go out, find out how ways you can collaborate, partner, and build community. Again, another episode of a Likkle this and a Likkle that has come to a wrap. And if you're not authentic, you're not being yourself. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.